There's been a constant threat of weather control through the conspiracy world for decades. It's bizarre. I don't get where it's coming from. Just look at this. This is a supposed prophet of God named Kat Kerr, who in 2019 claimed to be capable of controlling the weather, of controlling a full-blown hurricane, Hurricane Dorian.
So right now, at this moment, we take authority over Dorian that has no right off the coast of this state or anywhere. And we hit that storm to the east right now. And I'm going to do it 3 times.
Did it work? Of course it didn't. But I don't understand where this weather control nonsense is coming from. Why is the far right so obsessed with controlling hurricanes? Seriously, what a bizarre thing to pick to control.
Hit it to the east. We hit it to the east and command it. You go to the east, out away from land. We declare you will do no destruction in any way. We won't tolerate it. So, Father, I thank you for this honor and privilege to be here on the little coast of Florida. And we say to that storm, your end is coming. We don't tolerate your presence. We won't tolerate you coming ashore anywhere or causing any harm, death, or destruction. We speak on behalf of those who've already been affected by it, God. We thank you for a rapid recovery and restoration for all of them right now. But we decree and declare, you, Dorian, your days and hours are numbered, and we bash you.
We bash you. Love it. Love it to death. Love everything about it. That is not her first foray into weather control, nor will it be her last. Here's another example. Late August 2021. Check this out.
We together are going to take authority over these storms, one in the Gulf, one in the Pacific. We're not tolerating any destruction, any death, any severe flooding, no tornadoes, no damage of any kind whatsoever.
Did it work? Of course it didn't work. She's completely full of it.
And you know why? All of you 5,000 weather warriors, yay!
5,000 live concurrent viewers. Oh my God. That's a lot. That should not be underestimated. She's an extremely influential person. No joke. She's not the only one, though. This is the weird thing, okay? One nutter butter in a sea of others would be weird, but it's like a constant thread that runs through the conspiracy world. This is a guy named Dave Hayes, goes by the Praying Medic, and he is probably the most famous QAnon interpreter in existence, I would say. QAnon doesn't really have prophets or priests exactly, because it's not really a religious cult. It's more of a political cult, though being religious is a prerequisite. You must be a Christian to be a QAnoner. Well, anyway, he is an interpreter, so you have to go through and read these messages that are sent by this guy who claims to be like a Q clearance patriot or whatever. He's a guy that posts on forums and claims to be a guy named Q or whatever. He has to go through all of his posts and interpret what he means, because it's all nonsense. It's all just jumbled up mess, basically. That's what makes him the foremost Q interpreter, okay? Listen to what he has to say about weather control. This is from mid-October 2022.
What I've been doing is I've just been commanding there will be no dust storm on my property. Not in our neighborhood. It's not going to happen. Last night, the storm rolls in, and I could see this massive dust storm coming toward us on the horizon. Just brown dust rolling. So I just started commanding no dust storm. Not on our property. It's not going to happen. And sure enough, that dust storm came right up to our place. And there was a couple of gusts of wind in our back patio.
Wait, he said there wasn't. He commanded it not to come to his house or neighborhood or whatever. It's here. He's describing it being here. I don't understand. How can he say he commanded it not to come and then describe it coming to his house and claim that he succeeded?
I could see the trees moving around. No dust. When we
Oh, so the wind came, but he cleared the dust from the air, I guess. All right.
No dust. When we do that, when we exercise authority over the weather, we have seen it over and over again, where you can sometimes we'll watch on radar this thunderstorm cell moving right toward our house, and it'll split and go around us. You can see it on the radar.
I bet, and that's because you prayed for it. Is that right, Dave? Is that what you believe? If that's true, we should be able to test it, right? We should be able to have you pray and measure it. Verify as a matter of fact this is true, right? Would you be surprised to find that not one time has he ever spoken to a researcher or a scientist or a professor or anybody at all to get himself on record praying to make a thunderstorm or a wind gust or whatever else go away? Would you be surprised to find that out?
Some part goes to the east, part goes to the west, completely misses our house.
Completely misses his house, okay?
This is real. And if we end up in a time and place where there's nuclear fallout and contaminated dust and dirt and soot, there's no reason we can't command that stuff to leave, to go away, to be uncontaminated, to be hidden into the ground. Lord, take that cloud of radiated dust and put it in that cave and seal it up. You can do whatever you want.
Wow, we know we'll be safe from nuclear blasts with Dave Hayes around.
We do not have to put up with the effects of radiation.
Wow, that absolutely fascinating. You know what's even more fascinating than this? This is by no means the strangest thing this guy has said. Back in May, I think it's May 6, 2022, he comes up on the Elijah List YouTube or Facebook page. I think it's a Facebook page. He goes up there and makes even more bizarre claims about some secret powers that he has and that he wants to teach people to use.
If you follow me on Telegram, you'll note.
I do actually follow him on Telegram because it's deeply entertaining to see the shit he says.
That in November of last year, my theme of my discussions changed suddenly from news and current events to the supernatural.
Yeah, that's because QAnon, the thing that made him famous in the first place, Q disappeared, stopped posting for like 2 years, didn't say a word. Of course it moved from QAnon to like Jesus. What else is he going to do to make money? People were walking away from the whole QAnon mess eventually.
Because the Lord told me that people are going to need training and equipping to learn how to work miracles of healing, to learn how to multiply food.
Wow.
You think he's being figurative, he's not. He means literally. He is capable of multiplying food, and God taught him to do this so that he could teach others to do it.
To learn how to do a lot of things that maybe they haven't been doing.
Yeah.
Right. So with food multiplying, for example, when you go to the Gospels and you see how Jesus had the crowds, 4,000 people following him and the disciples, he's teaching them all day long. And the disciples at the end of the day say, well, Lord, we got thousands of people here and they have nothing to eat. Maybe we should send them away so they can go to a restaurant and get some food. And Jesus said, no, you give them something to eat, right?
Isn't it fascinating how people read a verse in the Bible and find 15,000 different ways to interpret it and tweak little tiny details that aren't even really there, just add one here or there to make it have a completely different, unrelated message, had nothing to do with the original story. Isn't it fascinating how people do that?
Jesus was trying to teach the disciples the kingdom has a response to any crisis. So he said, look, what do you have? What do we have for food? So they brought, 5 loaves of bread and some fish. Jesus blessed them, prayed over them, and he handed back the fish and the bread to the disciples and said, now distribute this food to the disciples. And they did. And the food had not multiplied when he gave it back to them.
Another detail that Dave Hayes added to the Bible. It doesn't say anything about the food had not multiplied before Jesus gave it to them. So what he's trying to establish here is that Jesus taught the disciples to multiply food. Jesus didn't multiply the food. Jesus' disciples multiplied the food. You know, the loaves and the fishes and stuff. Nonsense. The Bible does not say that. Doesn't even imply that. That's not the message that it intended for you to pull from that story. It's all made up. This is what this guy does. He makes things up like this and tweaks details until it fits the narrative that he wants it to fit.
The food multiplied as they distributed it. It multiplied.
Oh, really? Oh,
No, not really.
really?
Jesus was teaching the disciples, when there's a crisis where we don't have food, don't panic, don't worry, we got this. just believe and your food will multiply. And I have a lot of friends who have had food multiply.
Really?
I get emails quite frequently from people who see, they go to an outreach and they've got enough food for 20 or 30 people, and they have 100 people show up. And they pray over the food and it multiplies. And they have
No, that does not happen. I am very, very confident. If this was happening, we could test it scientifically. You think if people were capable of multiplying food through the power of Jesus, the military wouldn't have weaponized this already? Honestly, come on.
and it multiplies, and they have enough food for everyone.
I've gotten close to that. I can't say I've tested. The closest I've seen is someone with oil, with anointing oil, and they kept using it and it kept filling back up.
Oh my God, dude. This is the oldest Christian urban legend out there. Seriously. The old story of we had anointing oil sitting in the back room of the church. We used half of it, and then when we came back, it was refilled. This is a consistent story that pops up every time I deal with some evangelical wingnut. Seriously. It's like the old urban legend about schools putting in litter boxes for students to use. Nonsense! Not once has that ever happened in the history of ever! But it's a persistent urban legend that keeps coming up that nobody can quite prove, but everybody seems to believe. It's bizarre. Absolutely bizarre, man. Before we continue, I just wanted to mention something. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, you can support me in a few ways. First, there's Patreon. That's probably the best way. But if you want to get something back for your support, you can check out my Teespring. Or you can check out my Telltale Unfiltered channel. I go through long-form, unhinged sermons from all kinds of people, from Hank Kunneman to Greg Locke to Jehovah's Witnesses. So give it a look. Links are in the description. Okay, now back to the video. Okay, got off track there. The point of this is that weather guns and weather modification, weather control are pervasive through culture right now, through QAnon and far-right beliefs at this moment. Here's another one, mid-December 2021. This is Lauren Witzke. She's a far-right extremist, white nationalist, Christian nationalist, Nazi. I do not use that term lightly, honest to God. I don't use that lightly. She is, okay? So this is from mid-December, and she had some bizarre conspiracies to espouse. There were some tornadoes that took place in Kentucky. Listen to her description of what happened.
I saw the pictures in the aftermath of the tornado, and it was absolutely devastating. Buildings were leveled. I don't know how much warning they were given. I don't believe they were given a lot. It was just very sad. I think it was one of the worst tornadoes that they have had probably in decades. I personally believe it's weather modification.
Okay, now we're down conspiracy land. Now we're off the rails into just a nonsensical world that has absolutely no basis in reality.
Weather modification, that kind of thing. They're messing with our atmosphere. However, the fact of the matter is 100 people are dead. Sure. One thing I've learned is that Satan, the devil, cannot create anything. He can only pervert what God has created. God created the weather. Yes, he created the atmosphere for...
Hold on. Does the Bible say that? Does the Bible say that Satan can't create anything? Or is this a complete fabrication in your head? Because I don't remember the Bible saying that Satan is incapable of creating things. Am I missing something here?
Us to dwell in. However, man has found a way to pervert everything. That's why I say weather modification, how they have perverted the institution of marriage. They have perverted the institution or the definition of what life is in the womb.
Oh my God, I'm not even going to go there. The point is conservatives are obsessed. Far-right figures are obsessed with weather guns, weather technology, weather this, weather that. It's bizarre. I don't understand. There was a massive hurricane not too long ago, Hurricane Ian, and it ran right into Florida. It was a Category 5 when it made landfall, I believe. And Deanna Lorraine and our very own Lauren Witzke, the person we were talking about just now, had a conversation about it, and it got weird. Once again, weather technology comes up. Listen to this, late September 2022.
We understand that the deep state, they have weather manipulation technology.
That we do? We understand that? Who's we? I didn't know about this. This is information that I'm just coming across. The deep state? Who is the deep state? You know, the deep state is really just another term for the Illuminati. It's just another term for like the cabal or whatever. The secret society at the top that's running things and pulling strings and doing what they want. It's complete nonsense. The cabal or the Illuminati or whatever does not have some secretive weather technology that they're using to destroy things. Ridiculous.
They have DARPA. They know how to manipulate and create big storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, climate change, etc. And these huge hurricanes always seem to target red states, red districts, and always at a convenient time. Typically.
Okay, interesting. I see your claim that hurricanes only hit red states, and I raise you Hurricane Sandy. Didn't that run into New York a while back, a few years ago? Isn't California constantly dealing with wildfires? I mean, that's not a hurricane, I suppose, but it's a natural weather event that's destroying things. What kind of a fantasy land does she live in that she's always the victim, and Republicans are constantly the victims of things all the time? They are obsessed with victimhood, with persecution. They are obsessed with being like the target of the deep state or whatever else. Seriously, it's insane.
Typically right before elections, or, you know, in this case, possibly because Ron DeSantis has been stepping out of line a lot and challenging, fighting the deep state.
Oh, you think this is weird? You think this is an odd thing to hear? Just wait, because Lauren Witzke comes in a second and says even weirder shit.
I don't know, Lauren. The timing is definitely interesting, and they're even saying it. Do you think this could be...
Who is they? They are even saying it? Who is they, and what are they saying? I don't understand. This is called weasel words, where somebody points to some ambiguous authority, some secret group out there, some they that's like doing secret things behind the scenes and trying to manipulate stuff and pull strings and make you suffer because they don't like you, whoever they is. It's a manipulation of the English language, ultimately. Using they in a sentence without having defined the subject of the sentence in the first place.
Timing is definitely interesting, and they're even saying it. Do you think this could be a weather-manipulated hurricane?
Yeah, well, we know the technology does exist.
No, the technology does not exist to create hurricanes and point them at states and make them run into them. That's nonsense. Where did she hear this? Who told her this? There is some limited type of weather modification technology. During the Vietnam War, we were seeding rain clouds to make it rain longer and more often, basically, to extend the monsoon season so that it was harder for them to like move troops or supplies or whatever else. That is not the same as creating a hurricane, a Category 5, and pointing it at a state and making it run into that state out of retribution or revenge or whatever else against that state. That's insane. Also, it is actually against the Geneva Conventions to do any of that weather modification stuff, like extending the monsoon season in Vietnam. That's against the law, international law. We're not allowed to do that stuff. But, you know, facts don't seem to matter to these people. All that really matters is their feelings and their conspiracies. That's it. But anyway, yeah, let's keep listening.
We know the technology does exist. And
Right.
I mean, Deanna, they're literally trying to change people's DNA through vaccination. Of
Whoa, okay, wow, it's getting bizarre.
course, they would be willing to do something like this to target red states. I have
Of course, that's that one right there, the whole vaccine thing. That conspiracy theory has its roots in religion, too, interestingly enough. there is a contingent of radical far-right Christians who believe that the government is trying to change your DNA for one reason or another, or through some means, to try to disqualify you from being in heaven, from making it to heaven. They're trying to turn you into a Nephilim to prevent you from making it to heaven, basically. It's Satan's plan to blah, blah, blah. You know how these people are. So anyway, just bizarre stuff, dude. Bizarre stuff.
No doubt. I mean, the technology exists to manipulate weather. And
no, it doesn't.
This whole storm coming, I know that.
No, let me clarify. Okay, I said no, it doesn't, the technology. Technically, that, like I said, there is a type of technology they can use. It's basically seeding rain clouds, creating rain clouds to try to extend the monsoon season, for example, or whatever. What she's talking about is something very, very different. She's talking about a weather gun that they aim at a spot and pull the trigger, and now there's a hurricane or something there. So that technology does not exist.
Florida is prone to hurricanes. However, this developed into a Cat 4 or Cat 5 overnight.
Right.
And somehow that proves, I guess, that it's a weather gun, that they pull the trigger or whatever. You think I'm joking about the weather gun thing, right? Here are a couple of QAnoners talking about the weather gun. This is Kirsten Weldon. She died of COVID recently, I think April 2021, actually. And she's talking to another QAnoner, Francine Fosdick, about weather guns. I'm talking weather guns that are aimed at the U.S. and the trigger is pulled to cause crazy weather events.
So they had that freeze out, and they did it with the weather warfare. That would be, the bunker fuel in the ocean and the pulling down the polar vortex, right? With the chemtrails. So they pulled it down, and
so many buzzwords, chemtrails and everything.
They hit all of Texas. As you know, it had a huge freeze. So yeah, that's what happened. And they usually do it from the Arecibo Observatory when they...
God, she has inside info on this too, doesn't she? No, it's all made up. The whole thing is completely fabricated, of course.
Do their hurricanes and stuff to pull the hurricane stuff through that Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico. But this time the Arecibo Observatory was down. So they did it through the Ecuadorian HARP facility. It was traced there. If you watch my videos, you would see the video. It traced all the way back to the...
Who traced it there? What's she talking about? When she says it was traced there, it implies that she has hard evidence for this, right? There isn't a lick of evidence to be found anywhere. This is completely made up. On the spot, maybe? I don't know. Did she make this up on the spot? Or did she sit down and write it all down and come up with it beforehand? It's hard to tell.
Ecuadorian HARP facility, and that was China testing out their new weapons, weather weapons. And of course, Biden was paid billions of dollars before and got more money for letting them do that to the United States.
New weather weapons that China invented, and Biden was paid billions to allow China to test it out on the United States. That's just insane. Just everything about this from top to bottom is unglued from reality. Where did all this weather stuff come from? I don't understand. Why are these people so obsessed with weather guns and weather control and weather everything else? I don't get it. Do you think it routes back to an existential fear of climate change? Is this supposed to be their explanation for what's happening with climate change and why it's actually the deep state's fault and not their fault? It's just bizarre, dude. Let me know what you think about this in the comments or on Twitter at Telltale Atheist. I want to hear from you. Christopher Lewis, the Arecibo Observatory fell down December 1st, 2020. Really? I didn't know that. Thank you so much for that information. What the hell is she talking about then? Because that video was from April 2021. That was actually, I think, the month that she died, sadly, of COVID. This just goes to show you that facts are completely irrelevant to these people. They mean nothing. They pay no attention to the facts involved in the situation at all. It's insane. Alex Shearman, do these people hear themselves when they talk? Thinking other people are out to get you is one thing, but the weather? It's insane. It is. Absolutely agree. Yeah, it blows my mind. I don't know how they arrive at their conclusions either. It's just unhinged, man. I think it's rooted in a deep-seated fear and distrust of the government. It is what happens when you feel that the government has screwed you over one too many times, basically. It's just insane. And you have a right-wing perspective on the world. It's like an anti-establishment, anti-government, far-right perspective. That's where you start that leads to this, in my opinion. Fascinating to study, but really crazy, man.